Hi everyone, morning. Thanks for joining today's webinar, which is all about understanding the value that Microsoft Azure can bring to your business. So in the next half an hour or so, myself and Elliot from Microsoft are going to walk you through all things Azure. And if you have any questions throughout, please feel free to just pop them in the chat box and we'll get to them at the end of the session. So here at Bechtle, we are a Microsoft Gold partner and an Azure Expert MSP. So that means we have the highest accreditation for our Azure expertise and knowledge across all partners here in the UK. And we can absolutely leverage that to help you on your cloud journey. And we'll explain how we can do that further on in the session. So in terms of what we're looking at today, we're looking at cloud as a whole, and sort of the bigger picture in IT at the moment, the why definitely versus the what, and focusing on cloud concepts and adopting a cloud mindset ready to kickstart your journey to the cloud, and how we think that you should approach this journey that's in front of you, so the current market and the opportunity at the moment, and of course, where you can get started and how we can help you to get started. So I'm Rachel. I'm a Microsoft Business Development Manager here at Bechtle. I look after the relationship between Bechtle and Microsoft, as well as making sure that all of our customers can leverage the latest technologies, up to date with all the latest Microsoft changes, and really just making sure that you're making the most out of your Microsoft investment. So I have Elliot with me today from Microsoft. I will hand over to you now, Elliot, and you can introduce yourself.
Thank you. So, hi, I'm Elliot Chandler. I'm a partner technology strategist for Microsoft. I get given the easy job of sitting across every single technology that Microsoft has to offer. So if there is a Microsoft badge near it, I need to know enough in that area to be dangerous. And I'm in charge of technical strategy. So that means building out technical planning for Microsoft partners and customers and helping them understand what that journey to cloud really looks like. So this primarily is going to be around kind of that mindset towards the technology landscape. So the talk that I'm going to be going through today is going to be discussing kind of what that paradigm shift in technology looks like at the moment. So what do we mean by this? Is kind of the why versus the what, right? So that very first step on your journey of considering cloud, what should you be focusing on? And I think for a lot of people, that first consideration is all around the what, right? So digital transformation and cloud typically looks like moving a server from on-prem into cloud, and that's the journey, right? There's some technologies that we can use, but we're not really sure what's going on, and too often we forget about the why. So I'm going to do this thing that I kind of typically a bit of a bugbear of mine in presentations from Microsoft staff, but I like to do it in this one because it kind of fits in really well. And that's starting off with the Microsoft mission. So the Microsoft mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And this is actually really, really important because this statement focuses on the why and not the what. And you'll notice that our Microsoft mission is not to get everybody running Windows and consuming some Azure, right? And this is kind of the mindset shift that we want our customers to be in when they're looking at moving to cloud, whether that's the Microsoft cloud or any other, is what are the reasons you're doing it, right? You're not doing it because you want to stick some of your servers in the cloud. You're doing it because you want to have a tangible impact and deliver some value down to your organizations. So this is kind of why I start with the Microsoft mission, and we talk about empowering every single person and organization on the planet to achieve more, because that's the mindset we need to be in when we start talking about Azure, right? So all too often we start having a conversation with our IT teams around servers, right? And it starts to look a little bit like the next slide that we've got, which is typically the IT scenario, right? You guys are probably familiar with kind of both of these scenes, right? You see servers racked up, cables everywhere, and that's the impression we have of IT. And when we talk about cloud, it's going to be solving these problems. And IT is rapidly changing. It's no longer the thing that keeps the lights on. It's becoming the thing that's driving business transformation and pulling the business forward. So what can we do to make sure that when we think of IT and moving to cloud and our digital transformation journey, and not immediately think of these things, dealing with an IT department that keeps the lights on, or dealing with racked servers, cables, and all these things that aren't necessarily important to our business. And as we start to think about this a bit deeper, we understand that actually there is a massive change in what our business leaders are considering their number one priority. So on the next slide, you'll see that 86% of CEOs consider digital to be their number one priority. Now, I want to do a bit of qualification on this slide because I think it's really important. These statistics are over a year old, and there is a reason I keep them in, because this is pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, pre-shake up to the working world, right? So everyone knows that right now, most of our workforces are trying to work remotely, work from home, and our technological advances are becoming a number one priority to meet that demand. But these statistics are before that event. So even before COVID, 86% of our CEOs considered digital their number one priority, above demographic shifts, shifts in economic power, resource scarcity, and urbanization. The things that they saw that were going to impact their business most was technological advances. So we've got this kind of issue with technology now, that technology is becoming this desirable thing, this business motivator, and this is how we need to make sure that we are addressing cloud. And our move to the cloud, it should be solving tangible business problems. So the biggest problem that we have in businesses at the moment is this kind of versus mode, right? And I use this example because it's one that most people can relate to. I haven't come across a single organization that I've worked with that hasn't had the users versus IT scenario, right? Users want simplicity, flexibility, mobility, whereas IT need manageability, security, and compliance. And this is a fundamental problem that most organizations have. And when you think about any of the technology that you're using, you need to be considering actually what is this going to be doing for my IT team versus users. And it's a kind of scenario we can apply to everything. So if you, I imagine most of you were interested in this call today because you had some project in the back of your mind, or you were aware there was some need to move across to cloud, right? So if there's any of those scenarios you've got, you can apply this to most of it, right? How is that going to impact my users? How is it going to impact my IT teams? And we've got this constant battle of almost good and evil, right? We have these two sides that really need the best out of it. And if we don't get this right, we end up with a kind of a branch of shadow IT, right? Users are sending documents via WhatsApp or using their own systems because the ones that we've put in place aren't really fit for purpose in a remote working world. So how are we making sure that the systems we're developing are meeting the needs of our users so we don't end up with users branching off and doing their own shadow IT? Or even worse, this versus fight ends up looking just like a fight, right? This is the Microsoft friendly slide that I use here, but my next slide is kind of actually the reality in the workplace, which is more often than not, it is a constant battle between IT and users, right? We're butting heads all the time. You have your IT teams trying to lock down users that are creating branches of shadow IT. And Microsoft's no exception to this, right? We are a huge organization, global, hundreds of thousands of employees. All of the employees are relatively tech savvy, which means we're in one of those problem areas where we all kind of branch off and create our own things. So how do we create an environment that allows us to do that, but allows us to remain compliant? And that's why when we use things like the cloud, we make sure that we have a baseline of security, that we're operating across all of our platforms and services that we're creating. So this is kind of like the basic principle when considering the move to the cloud is, what is it going to deliver for you in terms of value, and how can we solve those core problems within your business? So it shouldn't be a what do I need to move because everyone else is moving to the cloud, or I've got some stuff that's expiring on premise, it should probably go to the cloud. It's really why. And there's two kind of main areas that we can address when looking at the why. And the first is a fundamental problem, which is 1,440 minutes. It's the amount of minutes in a day. And we want to know what you can be doing to make the most of that time, right? Most of us are working for the vast majority of that time. We sleep 8 hours if we're lucky. We've got family and friends we like to see, but work takes up the large amount of that time. And I know that most of us on this call, if given the opportunity to have more time in our working day, we know we could get more done. So stuff is being missed. How can we make sure that we're using technology to the absolute best of our ability to utilize that time well, right? So if you have IT teams, like in one of our earlier slides, that are constantly keeping the lights on with all these racked cables and servers and just worrying day in, day night, just keeping the lights on, how can we, if we shift some of that workload to the cloud and take the burden of managing that infrastructure off of their hands, point them towards more value generating activities, right? They know your businesses. They can be used to create value generation for you and your customers. So how can we make sure that we're using this time as effectively as possible? And this is really some of the things that you should be thinking of constantly when you're thinking about this move to cloud, is how can I maximize my time? The second issue that we have is a much more complicated one. There is an infinite number of devices and an infinite amount of data, but we only have a finite amount of time and attention. So how do we drown out the cacophony of data and all of the points that we are able to utilize and make sure we're getting the absolute best out of it, right? And this comes with an approach where we start thinking about what does technology mean to me in my organization, and make sure we take a data first approach. Okay, there's an awful lot to go through, but the crux of this kind of why versus what is we need to really understand what our motivators are to move to cloud. If your motivator is just everyone else is doing it, so I need to be doing it, we're in the wrong kind of mindset. Or if it's I've got an old server, it's falling down a lot, I should probably do cloud because that's the new thing, right? Then again, we're not maximizing what we need to do. What we really need to focus on is the why cloud. Why is it right for your organization? What is the benefit? What can you add in terms of value to your business? And then once we really start exploring that and understand, the next step is just how do we even start getting there? And honestly, my best piece of advice is to just start with an approach that you want to make every single pound spent on technology matter. Okay, now this doesn't mean squeeze every single penny out of what you've got in terms of breaking down cost and minimizing your spend. This means make sure your spend is in the right place. So every single pound you're spending on moving to the cloud, what is it you're getting out of that, right? So if you're moving a server, let's take the classic scenario. We have infrastructure as a service, IaaS, you'll hear it a lot. It's just moving a server from on-prem to cloud, pretty much as it is. You still manage absolutely everything. That will be the cheaper option. But you have to manage that server, you have to maintain it. Your IT teams will spend a lot of time making sure it doesn't fall over, patching, updating, and ultimately that server is going to be doing something, right? So you need to be focusing on the output as well as all the raw materials. Then you have things like platform as a service, which is where you take slightly less control over that. You can free up some resource your side and you can focus on using just the output of that resource. And then you have software as a service, which is the more expensive end, but you get a lot more out of it in terms of really light touch. You just feed in the data, you get out what you need. So there's multiple different approaches, even to just migrating a server into the cloud. So what is it that will maximize the value you get, right? And this is the conversation you need to be having every single time. And the thing that you need to really, really understand is when it comes to a move to the cloud, standing still is the same as moving backwards. So choosing not to transform, you need to understand that your competitors right now are transforming without you. It doesn't matter what field you're in, digital transformation is a real consideration. That statistic at the beginning was 86% of CEOs consider digital their number one priority. So if it's not a priority of yours and you're not planning how to transform your business from a digital perspective, your competitors are and you aren't. I'm having conversations with companies in every single industry, whether it's education, agriculture, manufacturing, legal, finance. Digital transformation is a real consideration for a lot of organizations. So it needs to be on your radar. And if you're choosing not to and you want to remain the same, that's fine. But again, it's the why versus what. You need to be really crystal clear on your why, because standing still is the same as moving backwards right now. And this doesn't mean overnight you're going to just change everything. It doesn't mean that you can say, right, well, I've decided to move to cloud and it starts happening. It is a journey. It is not a single master move. And this is where Bechtle come in really, really well, right? When you're going on this journey, you need a Microsoft partner who really understands that journey and can work with you on every single step, right? It's not kind of I have a server that's falling over, let me upgrade, I'll buy it and I'll move on. I'll see you in 2 years when that license expires. It's actually, how can you help my organization transform as we grow and as we go throughout this digital transformation journey, right? And this is going to be a key part of the relationship between you and Bechtle, which is, I'm going to say this, and sometimes the Bechtle guys don't like it, but make your problems their problems, right? Because digital transformation is scary, and there are a lot of things that are keeping you up at night, and there are a lot of things in your organization that you're not either getting the most value out of or that are causing issues. And that's the stuff we should be discussing with our Microsoft partners is, I'm facing these things on a daily basis. How can I either make them an advantage to me, or how can I help tackle them? right? And these are the conversations you need to be having, and it's going to be all around that journey and how you can kind of grow and go on that transformation journey together. So there's a few things you need to consider when you look at that journey, right? And the first of them is value generation. So the purpose of every transformation is value generation. If you take anything from this, it's what is the value you are going to get, and that should be your core focus. That doesn't mean keeping that price as low as possible. It means having the highest impact to your business when you will go on this journey. So what is the value to you of cloud? And that's going to be different for everyone. Some people, it will be allowing their users to work remotely, have cloud connected applications on their personal phone that syncs up to our corporate systems. For others, it will literally just be the best hardware that they can use on their job on a daily basis. Value generation is very intrinsic and it means something different to every organization, but that's where the discussion matters. And it's all around building that technical strategy for you guys, right? So how are you going to plan this journey to cloud? And you need to build on a couple of core pillars to be able to do that. And I break them down to 4 here. So the first is vision and strategy. What is your goal for your digital transformation journey? Where would you like to be? Do you want to be the absolute best customer facing provider in your segment and industry? Do you want to have the best set of tools and processes for your staff to allow them to be productive? Do you want to build a culture of collaboration, right? What are the things that you want as that vision and strategy for the end goal? The second is culture. So what culture do you want to build? What culture do you want to promote? And how can technology help you do that? Right, within Microsoft, our culture is to have a learn it all culture rather than a know it all culture. So working on projects and teams and hackathons and all these things are at the core of our culture. So we need a set of technologies that allow us to do that. The third one is leaning on your unique potential. So what is your secret sauce? What is it that you do better than anybody else? And how can we help you use technology to amplify that, right? And demonstrate that to all of your customers within your industries. And then the final one is capabilities. What capabilities have you got at your fingertips right now, or do you need at your fingertips to be successful? And once we understand all 4 of these, we can really start building that strategy, right? Now, for a lot of people, this is a very different conversation to, I'm going to move to Azure, right? So you may have joined this webinar thinking, oh, they'll tell me how to migrate a server from point A to point B. But if you're already in that mindset, you're missing the value of cloud. And there is an awful lot here that we've unpacked that we need to really make sure we kind of get right as we move forward, right? You need to have that vision and strategy, that culture, unique potential and capabilities understood from step 1. And that can seem daunting. So where do you start with it all? And honestly, the answer is kind of a bit cheesy, but it's just start by starting. You need to have the conversations with the right people. You guys are very lucky that you have a partner like Bechtle who you can just pick up the phone and talk to and say, right, I don't know where I'm going on my cloud journey, or I know exactly where I'm going. How can you help me get there? It doesn't matter what step you're on. You just need to start by having that conversation. This is my organization as it stands right now. These are the things that are keeping me up at night. These are the things I'm seeing my competitors doing, or these are the things my customers are demanding from a provider in my industry. And then we'll start building out that strategy for you in that journey over time. But the first thing you need to do is just start by starting. Have that conversation, open up the floor a little bit, and share your problems, right? Treat it like a therapy session. Pick up the phone and tell them your problems, and you'll start working through them piece by piece. And like we said, it's a journey, not a master move. So how do we start that journey, and how do we make sure we're on that right track? So I'll summarize this into the basic 7 points that we've run through, right? So the first is make sure every single pound spent on technology matters, right? Make sure you are getting the absolute most out of that. Second, understand that your competitors are transforming with or without you. You need to be aware of it and understand the reasons why, and either have that plan or be really sure that actually what you're doing right now is right, and that's why. So you need to have a plan one way or the other. The third is have that vision and strategy. Set that plan, involve Bechtle in that plan, make sure it is something that's co-owned, and you know from step 1, this is where you want to end up. Fourth is investing in culture. Understand what your culture is as an organization and make sure technology feeds into that and amplifies that culture. Next is finding your unique potential. What is it you do better than anybody else? And how can we make sure that technology is there to support that from step one? Sixth is build the capabilities you need to be successful. So make sure that you have these capabilities in-house. If they are not there, make sure we have a plan in place to bring them in-house, or partner with someone like Bechtle to understand what these capabilities are and how you can utilize them. And finally, and most importantly, start by starting. What conversations do you need to start opening up today and help you on that journey? We don't expect you to have all the answers now, far from it. What I want you to have is all of the right questions to come to Bechtle and say, this is where I'm at right now. This is the direction of travel for my industry and my organizations. How can we make sure that we are putting the right plan in place now to transform and remain relevant? So
Perfect. Thank you, Elliot.
did you want me to give the quick intro to the adoption workshop?
Absolutely can, or I can take it. It's completely up to you. I was just going to sort of relay everything you said around motivators and what benefits are specific to you and how to establish that value generation
Cool.
from
Yeah,
everything Elliot's just said. Perfect. Because I appreciate we've thrown a lot at you during this session, and there's so much to sort of pick apart around what to focus on, and we suggest start by starting, but actually, what does that mean? How can we assist you with starting that cloud adoption journey? So we have put together a cloud adoption workshop, which really puts the principles into practice and helps you to mitigate your risks moving to the cloud and making it as seamless and stress-free as it possibly can be by walking you through Microsoft's cloud adoption framework. This is very much point one. This is your capture and consult strategizing session. So this is where we would put all the planning in place together, giving you a holistic view of your IT estate, talking through what those benefits of moving to the cloud specifically would be for you. So how can we establish that value generation for your specific needs? And also looking at factors, what you want to achieve, you know, how can we align your cloud journey to your overall business strategy and your IT strategy? So we have this workshop in place, and we've got a bit of an offer on at the moment for our customers. For the first 10 workshops, we will be able to fund £1,000 towards them. So if this is something that you are really keen to get started with, or you'd like to talk to us about, absolutely feel free to get in touch or speak to your account manager, and we can look at this for you. We can talk you through how this would benefit you. Look at your infrastructure as it is now and assess maybe what would be the easiest way to get to the cloud, how we could start, what would be maybe the most risk-free way to begin, maybe some red flags areas that we think you should suggest leaving and architecting a bit further, but we can absolutely help you to start. So don't feel like you're in this alone, because you're not. So with that, I will put it over to you. If you have any questions, we would be happy to stay on for a little bit longer and answer them for you. So I have got one. I think it's for you, Elliot. I'd say you're best to answer this. What's the next best thing coming in Azure?
Which is a very big question. There's a lot. I think
Tricky one.
Yeah, I think the thing that's generating the most buzz right now, especially off the back of Ignite. So Ignite is kind of our technical showcase that we did a few weeks ago. The one that everyone's talking about off the back of that is Microsoft Mesh. So Mesh is our platform that enables kind of developers to build this immersive multi-user cross-platform mixed reality space, which is a lot of keywords, but essentially it just allows people to kind of be present in a room, even if they're miles and miles apart, right? So it's all about kind of sharing in a collaborative space, but in a kind of immersive way. So if you attended any of the Ignite stuff, there was our VR breakout rooms where people could interact with some of our blueprints and technology in a kind of auditorium type space with the actual virtual hardware in front of them, which is really, really cool. So that's now opening up for developers to start using and programming themselves, which is a really kind of cool new thing moving forward.
Absolutely. Because you think of that as being something so out of reach and so advanced, don't you? But bringing that into the workplace isn't as difficult as as people may think.
Yeah, and when you start
We do
thinking
have another
about,
question.
oh, okay, go for it.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Carry on, Elliot.
No, it's fine. I think there's a little bit of a delay on the audio. That's why. Yeah. So I think one of the coolest ones we saw from that was there was kind of this geographical landscape, and you saw it all the topography on a table in front of you, and you could kind of interact with it directly in front of you, and having those kind of plans 3D in front of you with the whole room able to stand around and talk about it, even though you were thousands and thousands of miles apart, was a really kind of cool showcase of the technology.
Yeah, I really like things like that, and especially guides as well, just taking it a bit more into kind of normal standard manufacturing and being able
Yeah.
to lay out certain scenarios in a warehouse. I really like that element of it too.
Yeah.
Our other question is, what tools are available to analyze my current estate? So I can take this one, or happy for you to chip in, Elliot, but here at Bechtle, we use we've got a variety of tools that we use, and that'd really be dependent on, once we've had a look at your infrastructure, your current estate, we would then sort of analyze it and choose the best one after having sort of that initial audit and overview of what we're looking at. So we use tools like Landmark and Cloud Optics, but really the tools sort of do the same thing. It all takes what you've got on-prem, and we can architecture that out and show you what that would look like in Azure or in any kind of cloud platform, and really sort of bring that to life. Have we got any other questions? It doesn't look like it. But yeah, I think we should draw to a close there then. I think that's all the questions we've had so far. Thank you all so much for joining this morning. If you do have any questions at all, or want to get in touch with myself or Elliot, please do send any queries or questions over to me, and I can pass them on, or feel free to go through your account manager, and we would be happy to discuss in more detail. Thanks very much for joining, and we will speak to you soon. Thank you, Elliot.
Thanks, guys. Take care.